Howdy folks, and welcome to another episode of Mingles with Jingles. As always, 100% advert free, supported entirely by everybody who supports me on Patreon. I really don't thank you guys enough. Since the adpocalypse hit YouTube, you guys really have been making the difference for me, so thank you all. Now, you may have noticed that there was a surprise bonus video yesterday. I don't normally upload a video on Sundays, but earlier in the week I visited the Norfolk Tank Museum with Rita. And by the time I put the video together, I thought, well, Sunday bonus video seems like as good an opportunity as any to roll the video out. Some of you also noticed just how good the sound quality was, particularly when there were large armoured vehicles rumbling around and making all kinds of noise. Let me give you some examples.
I'm so happy for me! I'll leave the link in the description down below so you can come and check it out, this place. It's definitely worth, guys. Oh, it's fantastic.
It is fantastic, isn't it, Rita? I mean, that was pretty impressive. The fact that you could clearly hear what Rita was saying, despite the fact that she was inside a very rapidly moving and very noisy armoured vehicle 30, 40, 50 metres away. That's the new wireless microphone that I got to take along to the Netherlands for the Operation Market Garden Hell's Highway road trip, but I couldn't get it to work when I was in the Netherlands, and I thought there might have been something wrong with my camera. Well, when we went to Norfolk, I figured out exactly what the problem was. You know when you buy something on Amazon, right after you've added it to your basket, but before you've actually paid for it at the checkout, Amazon gives you a little frequently bought together with the item that you've just added to your basket. And I saw that there was a connection that goes from the receiver on the wireless microphone and plugs into the microphone jack on your camera. So I thought, I'll probably need one of those if everybody else who bought this wireless transmitter receiver microphone system has also been buying this. There's a good chance I may need it. So I went ahead and bought that as well. It was just a connection wire, it wasn't expensive. Well, it turns out that my wireless transmitter receiver microphone setup did actually come with this connection cable of its own, so I didn't need to order the extra one, but I thought, well, great, I've got a backup. And it's just as well, because the one that I ordered separately didn't work. And I found this out the hard way when I was in the Netherlands recording stuff for the introduction to the still forthcoming Hell's Highway Operation Market Garden video. Every time I tried to record anything with me standing in front of a place of historical interest, there was just no audio whatsoever. And it was driving me scatty. I was looking at the receiver and I was clearly seeing an audio signal coming through. I tried adjusting the decibel levels. Nothing that I did made the slightest bit of difference. Yet, broken connector. It was as simple as that. And it wasn't until I was at the Norfolk Tank Museum earlier this week when I thought, you know what, I'll just try that other cable just in case. And straight away, suddenly, everything started working. So really pleased that that works. It's going to make life so much better. It's going to make the videos so much better, particularly when I'm standing next to something incredibly noisy, or when I'm in something incredibly noisy, like an armoured vehicle, for example. It's just a shame that it took me this long to figure out exactly what the problem was, because, well, one of the reasons why the Netherlands video has been taken so long is because a lot of the footage that I recorded just doesn't have any audio. So I'm going to have to do the audio in the editing suite rather than rely on whatever it was I was talking about at the time. But it's a learning experience. It all works now, so it's all good. Well, anyway, I suppose the hot topic of conversation over the course of the last week was the news about the Naval Training Centre in World of Warships. So I've discussed this at some length already during the course of the last week in 2 separate World of Warships videos. But there have been new developments since then, so hey, guess what? We're going to talk about it some more. It's kind of sad, really, that the news cycle over the last week has been dominated so much by the Naval Training Centre, because it wasn't the only thing that Wargaming announced as new and upcoming features in World of Warships, but it was the one thing that certainly grabbed all of the news headlines. One thing that I did spend some time talking about were forthcoming changes to the Priority Sector Air Defence System. As well as making the whole process more intuitive and less clunky, they're also changing the way it works. Right now, it's not unusual to see very little impact on an attacking flight of aircraft, even if they're flying straight into the teeth of a reinforced anti-aircraft gun sector. And the reason for that is because the DPS of all of your anti-aircraft guns is spread evenly across all of the aircraft in the attacking flight. So it's not unusual for an aircraft carrier to be able to get at least a first strike off without taking any casualties. And this, of course, is very, very frustrating. It leads you to believe that your anti-aircraft guns aren't doing anything. This is why people have been looking at the post-battle results screen and seeing that they've done 80,000 damage to aircraft and they've shot down 3. So how the hell can this be happening? Well, because the damage is spread across all of the attacking aircraft, what the carriers are doing is they're just taking it on the chin in the first strike wave because the aircraft have enough health to weather the outgoing damage. Basically, the whole squadron's acting as a damage sponge, and after they've gotten their first strike off and they're thinking about looping back to have another go, they're looking at the remaining health on the aircraft, which have all survived, and thinking to themselves, yeah, I might actually lose some aircraft if I come in again from the other side. So more often than not, they're just recalling the squadron in order to save all of those aircraft so that they can recycle them faster and keep full squadrons active. And they're just coming back, initially at least, with a different squadron type. So the players on the receiving end of this understandably have the perception that their anti-aircraft guns aren't doing anything. Well, in fact, if you're doing 80,000 damage during the course of a battle to aircraft and you're only shooting 3 down, it's not a perception, it's a fact that your anti-aircraft guns aren't doing anything. Well, that is all set to change. In future, instead of spreading the outgoing damage across all of the aircraft in an attacking squadron, your gunners are going to focus one aircraft down at a time. So you're going to start shooting aircraft down right from the get-go. Unsurprisingly, this announced change was very warmly received by the community, with the possible exception of some of the carrier players. Unlucky. Another change that they announced, and one which I in particular am very much looking forward to, I've been asking for this change for well over a year. It's to do with something that really annoys me no end. Changes to the battle chat system. They're going to add the ability to block tactical commands and text messages. They're going to add the ability to enable or disable the battle chat in the settings and controls menu. And they're also going to add a system that limits the number of the uses of the attention to square map ping commands in a short period of time. This is something that's been pissing me off for longer than I care to remember. We've all had those games where there's some arsehole on the team that does nothing but spam the function key commands and the tactical message system throughout the entire game. And when they get bored of that, they just hold down the control key, put the mouse cursor over the minimap, and then just hammer the left mouse button and drown out chat with map ping commands. And it is intensely annoying. Of course it's annoying. That's exactly why they do it, because they're arseholes. So, naturally, when it happens, the first thing you do is add that player to your blacklist and then disable all messages from that player. And it does absolutely nothing. It just means they can't send you private messages anymore. That's it. They're still entirely capable of spamming the map with pings. They still get through. They're still entirely capable of spamming the function key commands. They still get through. It does nothing to reduce the amount of crap that they're generating in the chat window. I'm amazed it's actually taken this long, because if somebody is flooding chat with map pings and function key commands, the ability to block them from sending you private messages isn't really a solution. You know what I'm saying here? So, I mean, I'm not complaining. I'm just glad that they've finally gotten around to implementing this system. So, big thumbs up from me on that, and judging by the responses on the developer blog, a lot of other people are very happy with this option as well. Another thing that they're looking at doing is changing the armor plating value of certain ships at certain tiers, and changing the values for the inertia fuse for high explosive shell skills. There's a lot of maths and numbers involved in this, and I don't really want to go into great detail, but the basic aim is to make it so that the IFHE skill isn't a mandatory requirement to be effective in cruisers with 152mm guns and destroyers with typically 127mm guns. At the moment, it's such a powerful skill, and you're so much better with it in certain types and classes of ship that it's basically, you must spend 4 skill points here often before getting the concealment expert skill, because it's just so powerful. It's like the last stand skill for destroyers, the skill that keeps your ship moving and turning even after the engine or the rudder and steering have been disabled. It's just such a basic, you must spend skill points on this as soon as it becomes available skill. There's just no choice in the matter. If you're in a destroyer, you take that skill as soon as you can, or get used to dying a lot. IFHE is kind of like that, particularly if you're in a light cruiser. Well, a light cruiser that fires high explosive shells, and not the Royal Navy light cruisers, and for a lot of the destroyers. It's such a powerful skill that you reach 10 skill points on your captain, and theoretically you've got a whole bunch of new skills to choose from, but actually you really only have one. So it's no choice at all, and that's not good. There shouldn't be skills that are effectively mandatory, and so that's basically what this upcoming change is aimed at changing. In the same week, they also announced some forthcoming changes to the matchmaking system. Unfortunately, I'm not able to find the development blog post where they announced the forthcoming changes, because they did it in the same post where they announced the Naval Training Center. And that initial post is now gone from the World of Warships dev blog, because when they announced the Naval Training Center, everybody lost their minds. People were taking to the street, stringing up effigies of the World of Warships developers from the nearest lamppost and setting them on fire. So it was kind of unfortunate that in the same week where all of these other changes to the game were announced, and most of these seemed like pretty good changes, but absolutely nobody was talking about them. Because everybody was focusing their attention, and rightfully so, on the news of the changes that were coming to the game as a result of this Naval Training Center system. So, what is it, and why did everybody lose their shit? World of Warships has a bit of a problem. It's not a problem that affects everybody. In fact, it's not even a problem that affects the majority of the players. The majority of the people who play World of Warships are relatively casual players. They're quite happily plugging away, just playing their ships and gradually working their way up the tech trees and unlocking ship after ship after ship at their own pace, and that's absolutely fine. Nothing wrong with that. But there's also a very large minority of players who are anything but casual, who play the game a lot. They have multiple tier 10s unlocked, multiple lines of ships unlocked, and lots of ships that have been fully researched, and they've played so often that they've accumulated millions of experience on those ships. They've got a lot of gold, they've got hundreds of millions of credits, millions of free experience, and they're basically just sitting on it all, waiting for the next free XP premium ship to be introduced so that they can just basically grab it as soon as it's released, or they're waiting for the next line of ships, maybe Italian cruisers for example, to come out so they can basically unlock them all on the first day. And this is an issue because it means that there are a lot of players in the game who don't really have any medium or long-term goals to keep them coming back to the game. Now, I haven't seen any player retention figures, so I don't know how big of a problem exactly this is. If it even is a problem at the moment, I don't know how potentially big of a problem this could be in the future. Presumably there are still plenty of players in this kind of situation who are perfectly content to keep coming back every day and just playing the game, without any real destination in their minds as to where they want to be in the game 6 months from now. They're just playing the game and enjoying it. Clearly, however, the people at Wargaming do have facts and figures, and they were concerned enough that they didn't have any medium or long-term goals for a sizable minority of the player base that they had to think about putting something in, and the Naval Training Center was it. So the basic idea was this. What the Naval Training Center was going to do was give you the option, it wasn't going to be mandatory, or at least that was the theory, they were going to give you the option of basically forgetting an entire line of ships. So let's say, for example, you've just unlocked the USS Montana, Tier 10 US Navy battleship. Now, if you're a casual player and this is only your first or second or even third Tier 10 ship, this is not going to be an issue for you. The Naval Training Center wasn't going to apply to you because there's still a shit ton of content in the game for you to grind through. However, if this was your 10th, 11th, 12th, 13th, 14th or 15th tier 10, and you're rapidly running out of lines of ships to unlock, perhaps you might be interested in effectively forgetting or resetting your progress in the American battleship line, and then playing through them all again from scratch. Except this time, as you progress up the American battleship line, you earn tokens which can be used towards improving one of those American battleships. Probably the USS Montana once you get to tier 10 for the second time and unlock it again. And what these tokens would do is improve the ship. So the whole idea was kind of like the Paragon system in Diablo, something to give you the incentive to keep going once you'd reach maximum level, or like the Prestige system in Call of Duty. Well, that's not strictly true, because if it was like the Prestige system in Call of Duty, people probably wouldn't have been quite so upset about it. You see, in Call of Duty, grinding out 500 kills with the M4 doesn't give you anything other than a new weapon skin for the M4, and if you're absolutely positively determined to play Call of Duty with a purple and pink tiger stripe M4 carbine, I'll go for it, because it has no effect on gameplay other than making you look like a twat. But the changes that they were suggesting and defending against community outrage in World of Warships had substantial impact on gameplay. We were talking about 2 tier 10 battleships. Again, let's use the Montana as an example. Somebody who's played the game casually and who has just unlocked the Montana for the first time. A stock Montana, shall we say. And somebody who plays the game like they're out for revenge, and they've fully upgraded their Montana through the Naval Training Center, and their Montana has 15% more hit points. Its main battery and secondary battery guns are 10% more accurate, and its secondaries fire 10% further. They've got 1 extra charge on all consumables, and their damage control lasts 40% longer. They're basically sailing a tier 11 battleship. Unsurprisingly to everybody apparently other than wargaming themselves, this whole concept was about as popular as a turd in a punch bowl. I think what surprised wargaming the most wasn't the fact that the casual players absolutely hated this idea, understandably, but also the very people that it was aimed at. The ones who do play the game the most, the ones who stood to benefit the most from this system, they absolutely hated this idea as well. It was really difficult to find a single section of the World of Warships community who had anything good to say about this Naval Training Center scheme. Everybody was united against it. And what was equally gratifying to see was that it only took 48 hours for the developers to completely change their plans with regards to the Naval Training Center as a direct result of community feedback. The problem with the Naval Training Center idea wasn't the concept, it was the rewards. I do agree that the game probably does need something for veteran and hardcore players to dedicate their resources towards in the medium and the long term. But the idea of giving the people who play the game the most and have the most resources available to spend, and who are probably, by nature of the fact that they are the ones that play the game the most, they're probably already the better players around in the World of Warships community, the idea of giving them something that made them even better still, that whole concept turned out to be about as popular as a fart in a spacesuit, and it was very gratifying to see that the World of Warships community was united in the desire that the game remains an even playing field for everybody, or at least as even a playing field as a competitive multiplayer game can be. And the developers responded to that feedback, and it didn't take them very long at all. So the Naval Training Center is going to stay, but there aren't going to be any performance buffs gained as a result of resetting progress and grinding out your progress again through various ship lines in the Naval Training Center when it does eventually make it into the game. It is coming, but instead of making your existing ships better, it's going to make your existing ships different with the addition of some cosmetic unlocks, maybe some legendary upgrades that don't directly make a ship better, but just change the way the ship plays in the way that most of the existing legendary upgrades for Tier 10 ships do, and also introducing the ability to earn rare premium ships that you can't get anywhere else. They've already confirmed that the French Tier 10 cruiser, the Colbert, and the US Navy battleship, the Ohio, are going to be some of the first reward ships available through the Naval Training Center. Again, they're not necessarily any better or any worse than the ships that are available to the regular player base. They're just something different, something that you can say, hey, check me out, look at my shiny new ship. I got this through the Naval Training Center. So we kind of dodged a bit of a bullet there. But we dodged the bullet because we as a community collectively stood together. Even the players, a minority, but a fairly large minority of the player base who stood to benefit the most from the benefits being offered by the Naval Training Center, we stood together and said, no, we do not want this. It will be bad for the game as a whole. All we want is a level playing field. And as a result, the developers listened. They looked at the feedback, and within 48 hours, they agreed. So I think that's a win for everyone. And it's nice to end an episode of Mingles with Jingles on a positive note, because that is the end of this week's episode of Mingles with Jingles. I hope you've enjoyed it. I hope you all had a great weekend. And as always, take care, and I'll catch you next time.